everyone, and welcome to Tuesdays with Tabitha, a weekly live stream where we chat about how you can manage change to prevent conflict in your workplace. Today, we're going to talk about the top 3 signs you're walking on eggshells and help you find your voice when it really matters. My name is Tabitha Liebert, and I am a conflict management strategist. And I help professionals to manage conflict in their relationships, workflows, and systems with ease so that they can bridge the gap between issues and outcomes and create a peaceful and profitable workplace. So if you're joining us live, say hi and let us know where you're joining from. And if you're also joining on the replay, give us a shout out below and let us know that you're seeing this video. And while you're watching, if you think of someone who this content can help, share it with them or invite them to watch it with you. And while you're here, subscribe to our YouTube channel and set notifications for when we add new content. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about what happens when you walk on eggshells around conflict. And I know that you have been hearing a lot about quiet quitting. Quiet quitting is the philosophy where employees don't abruptly leave a job. Instead, they do just what the job requires, no more, no less. They don't extend themselves further than the scope of what they're working on. And quiet quitting is similar to work to rule, which is a job action where employees do no more than the minimum required by their employment contract. Soon after we started hearing the term quiet quitting, we started to also hear about quiet firing, which is a term that describes what employers do when they set employees up to fail. So they don't necessarily fire them, but they do things that would set them up to fail. And this is not something that I recommend anyone do. I think that it's a cop-out that effective change agents don't necessarily take. They don't need to do this. Effective change agents can learn how to have crystal clear communication so that you speak into the conflict situation, discuss it with your workers, and manage that change so that you don't need to do what is called quiet firing. However, I've seen employers do this. I've seen employers do the quiet firing thing by making changes to their employees' shifts, to their location of work, to their workload, to their schedules. I've also seen employers change expectations or create new expectations that they think their employees would not be able to meet. In effect, they're setting unattainable goals that result in pushing employees out the door. And none of this is new. This has been happening for a long time, and those of us who have been working in professional spaces for quite a number of years have seen this happen. And those of us who have not had so much work experience, I can promise you that you will see this happen at some point in time in the future. You might be hearing about quiet quitting and quiet firing in the news right now. You might have even seen it happen in your workplace. And what you do know is that this affects the productivity of your team. Or worse, if you're an employer, this affects your revenue. But what if employees are quiet quitting because they're unhappy in their roles or with how they're being treated? And what if employers are quiet firing because they lack the management skills or empathy, right? This matters. This matters because not speaking up when you need to affects the productivity of your team. It affects your revenue. It affects how you show up in the world, and it affects how your employees present themselves to your clients or your customers if those employees are in client or customer facing roles. But if you can learn when to speak up and what to say when you do speak up, you will be able to de-escalate conflict stemming from workplace roles or conflict stemming from workplace relationships. And you can do that without blowing up, without overreacting, or without freezing, so that you don't speak when you need to actually say something. Because quiet quitting and quiet firing is really organizational conflict. Quiet quitting and quiet firing are just really organizational conflict. It's conflict stemming from either workplace roles or workplace relationships. And you might be observing this. You might know exactly what's happening. Employees may be coming to you and complaining. Team members might be reaching out to each other, and the word is getting back to you through the grapevine, yet you find yourself walking on eggshells around it. You're not saying anything about what's happening. And this might be because you don't have the capacity to do that, or it might be because you don't know what to say, because let's face it, you might also just be waiting this out, hoping that someone leaves. I've seen that happen, where managers just wait out the problem instead of intervening, so that in the hope that staff leave. I've also seen managers not replacing staff who left because they're just tired of dealing with personalities and what they call entitlements. And so what happens is that leaders who wait things out and hope that staff leave, or leaders who don't necessarily deal with the conflict when it happens, or leaders who don't replace staff after there's attrition, sometimes they end up doing the work themselves or spreading the work out across the organization just to keep things moving. But there's no need to actually walk on eggshells. And the invitation is for you to overcome the urge to do that when there's conflict, because if you could overcome the urge to walk on eggshells and not discuss what's happening, you're going to be able to navigate difficult situations and difficult conversations with ease and negotiate successful outcomes, and most of all, generate peaceful profits in your business. So how do you do that? Well, here is your Let's Stop Walking on Eggshells checklist. The first thing that I would advise you to do is check your organizational culture. Have you set an organizational culture? Is there one existing? Have you looked at it since the pandemic? Because since the pandemic, everyone has changed, including you. So have you looked at your organizational culture to see where it needs to go in the post-pandemic era that we are working in? Because what you might think is quiet quitting might really be your employees setting firmer work-life balance or boundaries around themselves now that some of them are working remotely, or now that their needs have changed, or now that their mental well-being has changed. And so you want to take a careful look at your culture and see if you need to do a culture reset. Another tip for you is to create psychosocial safety inside of your work environment. And you do this by creating a space where people feel safe to say what's happening. People feel safe to say what's going on. They feel safe to say how they feel about the role that they have, how they feel about their workload, how they feel about their teammates, and how they feel about you. And if you can do that, you're going to be able to learn how to lead organizational change through positivity and shared vision. You're going to need to learn how to recognize the positive attributes in people. And you're going to need to learn how to be a more likable boss. And if you do those things, you are going to create psychological safety and psychosocial safety in your workplace. The third tip to help you stop walking around on eggshells is to know your conflict style. Because if you know how important the outcome is, and if you know how important the relationship is, it will tell you how to approach the conflict that's happening. Because by now you know that being sweet and respectful is not enough to resolve conflict. You gotta get in there, right? And actually get to the root cause of the issues so that you and your team can start to work on them. Your reaction to conflict should depend on the relationships of those people and the desired outcome. And once you work that through, you are going to be able to decide whether you need to collaborate, whether you need to direct, whether you need to harmonize, or the other conflict styles, how you need to deal with them. Now, these are some of the things that you need to know so that you can stop walking on eggshells around the workplace issues in your ecosystem. If you are working on any of these, or if you would like to implement something that we discussed today, click on the link below and join our upcoming complimentary mastermind alongside other CEOs and executives where we talk about these things and I can answer your questions. And we're going to be sharing thoughts and insights on finding your voice when it matters most and helping those CEOs and leaders to do better about walking on eggshells around the conflict. So take care and have a wonderful rest of the week. I'll see you on the next live stream. Bye now.